The courtroom was heavy with silence as Judge Richard Hayes raised his gavel, his stern face unreadable under the dim ceiling lights. The wooden crack of the gavel echoed like thunder, sealing the fate of Michael Carter, who sat trembling at the defense table. His brother Daniel Carter clenched his fists tightly, whispering under his breath, "This cannot be justice." Michael Carter looked at Daniel Carter, eyes filled with fear and helplessness, as the crowd shifted uneasily. Laura Carter, their mother, covered her mouth with shaking hands, her sobs muffled against the suffocating air. The prosecutor, Olivia Bennett, smirked slightly, her papers stacked neatly, while defense attorney James Holloway lowered his gaze in defeat. The jury avoided meeting anyone's eyes, their verdict already passed, their silence louder than words. Daniel Carter felt the weight of betrayal pressing into his chest, as if the world itself had turned against him. He whispered again, "I swear, Michael, I will fight for you until my last breath." Outside the courthouse, Daniel Carter stood in the cold night air, the neon lights flickering against the rain-soaked pavement. His heart thundered, and the words of Judge Richard Hayes echoed in his skull. Laura Carter's voice trembled as she said, "Michael will not survive this." Daniel Carter wrapped his arm around her shoulders, whispering, "I will not stop until truth is uncovered." Olivia Bennett stepped into a waiting car, her umbrella shielding her, her expression unreadable. James Holloway lit a cigarette, his hand shaking as he avoided eye contact. Daniel Carter stared at the courthouse steps, his resolve etched into every muscle. He whispered once more, "I swear, Michael, I will fight until the last breath leaves me." Daniel Carter returned to Michael Carter's holding cell, the air thick with damp concrete and despair. Michael Carter sat on a metal bench, head in his hands. "Daniel, it's over," he whispered. Daniel Carter knelt before him, gripping his brother's shoulders, saying, "No, it's not. I know you didn't do this. I'll prove it." Michael Carter's tear-streaked face lifted, his voice breaking, "I don't have your strength." Daniel Carter's eyes burned with fire. "Then lean on mine. Until my last breath I will carry this fight for you." In a quiet diner, Daniel Carter met with family friend Clark Evans, his trusted confidant. Clark Evans leaned across the table, whispering, "There are things buried in this case. Dangerous things." Daniel Carter's jaw tightened as he said, "Then help me dig." Clark Evans shook his head. "Daniel, you're stepping into fire." Daniel Carter's voice was steady. "Let it burn me. I won't let Michael die in chains." The clink of cutlery and murmurs of strangers surrounded them, but Daniel Carter's world narrowed to a single truth: this fight would consume him. Alone in his apartment, Daniel Carter sat at a cluttered desk filled with case files, newspaper clippings, and photographs. The rain tapped against the window as he whispered, "Michael, I will uncover the truth." His reflection in the glass stared back, eyes shadowed with exhaustion, yet blazing with determination. He pulled open a drawer and revealed a sealed letter with Michael Carter's name written in bold. Daniel Carter held it tightly, but did not open it. Instead, he lit a small lamp, casting a warm glow over the storm of papers. "This is only the beginning," he whispered. Daniel Carter sat in the dimly lit visiting room, the metal table cold beneath his palms. Michael Carter leaned forward, eyes hollow, whispering, "Daniel, don't waste your life on this." Daniel Carter shook his head and replied, "Your life is not waste, Michael. Truth still lives." Laura Carter entered quietly, her voice shaking as she said, "Both of you are breaking under this weight." Michael Carter placed his hand over hers, murmuring, "Mother, I can endure prison, but I can't endure watching Daniel destroy himself." Daniel Carter's voice rose with fire. "I am not destroyed. I am alive because of this fight. Justice will breathe again, even if it costs me." The air felt thick, the ticking clock louder than their hearts. Laura Carter bowed her head and whispered, "Then heaven help us all." Later that night, Daniel Carter sat across from Clark Evans in a parked car near the courthouse. Rain drummed on the windshield as Clark Evans muttered, "This case is not clean, Daniel. Files vanish, witnesses change stories." Daniel Carter's voice was steel. "Then we trace the shadows until they bleed truth." Clark Evans sighed heavily. You are chasing ghosts. Powerful people want Michael forgotten. Daniel Carter clenched the steering wheel and whispered, then let them fear the brother who does not forget. The storm outside rattled louder, but inside the car, silence pressed between them. Clark Evans looked at him, pity and fear mingling, before saying, you will either find truth or bury yourself with it. Inside a cluttered library, Daniel Carter pored over stacks of legal records. James Holloway appeared, his shoulders sagging, whispering, Daniel, there is nothing left to fight. Daniel Carter's eyes blazed as he said, every lie leaves a scar. Scars can be traced. James Holloway lowered his gaze, muttering, you don't understand how deep this rot goes. Daniel Carter slammed his fist on the table, scattering papers, and growled, I understand enough to know silence is a sin. James Holloway's face twisted with regret. He muttered, I once believed justice lived here, now I see it strangled. Daniel Carter whispered firmly, then I will cut the rope. Daniel Carter returned home and found Laura Carter waiting at the kitchen table. She whispered, Daniel, you are fading. Your eyes carry fire, but your body carries ash. Daniel Carter poured black coffee, saying, if my body burns, let it light the path for Michael. Laura Carter reached for his hand, tears in her eyes. I've already lost one son to injustice. Must I lose another to obsession? Daniel Carter's grip tightened as he whispered, if I stop, Michael will die alone. I cannot allow that. Laura Carter's voice broke as she whispered, you are my son. I want to save you both. Daniel Carter looked at her, a rare softness in his eyes. Then pray for strength, for both of us. On the edge of the city, Daniel Carter walked alongside Clark Evans under flickering streetlights. Clark Evans muttered, you're pushing into places that will bite back. Daniel Carter answered firmly, let them bite. I will not break. Clark Evans' expression tightened as he said, Daniel, truth can kill faster than lies. Daniel Carter stopped, eyes locked on him, whispering, if I must fall, I will fall fighting. Clark Evans looked at him in silence, and the hum of the city filled the void. Daniel Carter raised his gaze to the night sky, whispering again, Michael, I will fight until the last breath leaves me. Daniel Carter shuffled through stacks of old police records in Clark Evans' garage, dust rising with every folder he opened. Clark Evans muttered, these files are poison, Daniel. They were buried for a reason. Daniel Carter's jaw tightened as he said, poison only kills when swallowed. I plan to expose it. The pages trembled in Daniel Carter's hands as he uncovered inconsistencies in witness statements. Clark Evans shook his head, whispering, this will turn enemies into hunters. Daniel Carter's eyes flared with defiance. Then let them come. I will not bend. The weight of secrets filled the cramped space, the hum of a flickering bulb casting shadows across their faces. Daniel Carter met James Holloway in a narrow alley behind the courthouse. James Holloway whispered, they will crush you if you press further. I tried once and they broke me. Daniel Carter leaned closer, voice steady, you allowed them to break you. I will not allow them to break Michael Carter. James Holloway's face twisted with shame as he muttered, you sound like a man walking into a grave. Daniel Carter's eyes burned in the dim streetlight. If it is a grave, it will not be mine. It will be theirs. The words hung like a blade, slicing through the damp night air. In a crowded cafe, Olivia Bennett sat across from Daniel Carter, her lips curved in a faint smile. Olivia Bennett whispered, you are reckless, Daniel. Do you really think you can change what is already sealed? Daniel Carter leaned forward, voice sharp, sealed lies can still be torn open. Olivia Bennett's eyes glittered with hidden amusement as she said, you remind me of a man who digs graves with his bare hands. Daniel Carter replied, his tone calm but heavy, then let me dig until truth rises. Patrons in the cafe buzzed around them, oblivious to the storm brewing at their table. Daniel Carter walked into Michael Carter's prison cell, carrying photocopies of altered reports. Michael Carter whispered, they're too powerful, Daniel. Stop before they end you. Daniel Carter placed the papers on the bench, voice steady. Every empire of lies falls when truth finds its crack. Michael Carter's voice cracked. And if truth never comes? Daniel Carter's eyes locked with his. Then I will keep fighting until my last breath. That is my vow. Michael Carter lowered his head, tears slipping silently. The sound of keys clanging in the corridor, echoing like chains around them. At Laura Carter's modest home, Daniel Carter spread documents across the dining table. Laura Carter whispered, "Your eyes look like fire, Daniel, but your body looks broken." Daniel Carter smiled faintly. "If fire consumes me, then let it burn for Michael." Laura Carter placed her hand on his arm, pleading, "You cannot fight shadows alone." Daniel Carter's voice hardened. "I am not alone. Every lie I expose is another hand pulling with me." The ticking clock filled the silence. Laura Carter whispered, "I fear this fight will end you." Daniel Carter replied, "Then let it end me standing." Daniel Carter pressed a stack of hidden reports onto Clark Evans' table, his voice hard. "You knew about this. You held it back." Clark Evans' eyes darted nervously as he whispered, "I did what was needed to survive." Daniel Carter's chest tightened, fury rushing through him. "You betrayed Michael Carter. You betrayed me." Clark Evans stood, his voice rising. "You don't understand the power we're up against. I saved you by keeping quiet." Daniel Carter slammed his fist down, shaking the table. "Silence is not saving. Silence is killing." Clark Evans' shoulders sagged, shame crawling across his face. The weight of betrayal cut deeper than steel, leaving Daniel Carter standing in a storm of shattered trust. Daniel Carter stormed into James Holloway's office, papers clutched in his fist. James Holloway whispered, "What are you holding?" Daniel Carter spread documents across the desk, proof that Clark Evans buried evidence. "He worked against us." James Holloway's eyes widened as he muttered, "Clark Evans was supposed to be your ally." Daniel Carter's voice cracked with anger. "He was family in spirit, and now he is poison in my veins." James Holloway placed a trembling hand on his chin, whispering, "This changes everything, Daniel. Nothing is what it seems." Daniel Carter turned away, his voice low. "Then I will burn through the lies until truth stands alone." Laura Carter sat at the kitchen table as Daniel Carter revealed the betrayal. Laura Carter's face paled, her trembling hands gripping her teacup. She whispered, "Clark Evans sat at this table with us. How could he?" Daniel Carter's voice hardened, "Because power blinds loyalty. Because fear silences truth." Laura Carter's tears streamed down, her voice cracking. "I trusted him like blood." Daniel Carter leaned close, voice fierce. "We trusted him, and he chose their side. He will answer for this." Laura Carter whispered through tears, "This fight is swallowing you whole, Daniel." Daniel Carter stared at her, whispering, "Then let it swallow me, as long as it spits out justice." Daniel Carter confronted Clark Evans in the rain-soaked street. Clark Evans shouted, "You think you can fight them? They own everything." Daniel Carter's voice thundered, "They don't own me. And they don't own Michael Carter's life." Clark Evans' face twisted, guilt battling fear. He muttered, "I tried to protect you." Daniel Carter stepped closer, fury glowing in his eyes. "You protected yourself." Clark Evans' shoulders slumped, his voice trembling. "Then finish it, Daniel. Expose it all. But know this, it will break you." Daniel Carter whispered coldly, "Better broken in truth than whole in lies." Daniel Carter sat alone in his apartment, files spread like shattered glass across the floor. He whispered to the empty room, "Clark Evans betrayed us, but he gave me the crack in their wall." Michael Carter's voice echoed in his memory, "You cannot fight them all." Daniel Carter lifted the sealed letter again, staring at Michael Carter's name. His hand trembled, but he placed it back in the drawer. He whispered, "Not yet. Not until I end this." The rain outside beat against the glass, a steady drum of time running out. Daniel Carter's eyes glowed with defiance, his vow unbroken. The courtroom pulsed with tension as Daniel Carter carried a box of files into the center, his eyes burning with defiance. Judge Richard Hayes stared down at him, demanding, "What is the meaning of this interruption?" Daniel Carter set the box down hard, voice thundering, evidence long buried, brought to light. Olivia Bennet narrowed her eyes, rising from her chair. "This is theatrics, nothing more." Daniel Carter pointed toward the jury, his voice sharp. "This is truth, and it belongs to them." Michael Carter sat shackled nearby, his head lifting in shock, whispering, "Daniel." Laura Carter wept quietly, clutching her hands in prayer. James Holloway leaned forward, whispering under his breath, "God help us all." The silence stretched as the weight of Daniel Carter's challenge filled the air. Daniel Carter held up a document, his voice steady. "These files show contradictions in witness statements. They were buried by Clark Evans." Gasps rippled across the room. Clark Evans, seated reluctantly at the back, shifted in his chair, muttering, "Daniel, stop this madness." Judge Richard Hayes slammed his gavel. "This is highly irregular." Olivia Bennet snapped, "These papers are stolen, inadmissible." Daniel Carter's voice rose with fury. "Truth cannot be stolen. It can only be hidden." Michael Carter's eyes welled with tears as he whispered, "Brother, you did it." Laura Carter buried her face in her hands, trembling with both hope and fear. Daniel Carter turned his gaze on Clark Evans, his voice sharp as a blade. "You betrayed us. You silenced justice." Clark Evans' face paled, his words tumbling. "I was protecting myself. They threatened everything." Daniel Carter stepped closer, fury in his eyes. "You chose fear over truth." Clark Evans' voice cracked. "Daniel, you don't know the forces at play." Olivia Bennet interjected, her tone cold. "Enough of this spectacle." Daniel Carter ignored her, pointing to the files again. "These lies poisoned the verdict. This betrayal chained Michael Carter." Michael Carter whispered across the room, "Daniel, stop. They'll destroy you." Daniel Carter stood unshaken. "They will not silence me." Judge Richard Hayes' gavel thundered again as he shouted, "Order!" Daniel Carter's voice roared above the chaos. "Order belongs to truth, not corruption." Olivia Bennet shouted back, "You will not rewrite the law with your rage." James Holloway stood suddenly, his voice trembling but strong. "He speaks the truth, Your Honor. I failed once by staying silent. I will not fail again." Daniel Carter locked eyes with Judge Richard Hayes, his voice low but cutting. "This court is not a stage. It is a battlefield, and today, justice fights back." The crowd murmured in shock, the walls of silence beginning to crack. The climax shattered in silence, as Daniel Carter stood alone in the center of the courtroom, sweat glistening on his brow. He whispered, "This fight has already taken everything, but it will not take truth." Michael Carter's eyes locked with his, filled with both love and fear. Laura Carter clutched the edge of the bench, whispering a prayer under her breath. Olivia Bennet seethed, her jaw clenched in fury. Clark Evans lowered his head in shame, unable to meet Daniel Carter's gaze. Judge Richard Hayes' voice echoed, "This court will decide if your words hold weight." Daniel Carter straightened his back, whispering, "Even if this court rejects it, truth already lives." The courtroom sat in stunned silence as Judge Richard Hayes leaned forward, his gavel resting on the bench. He declared, "These files will be reviewed, but this court cannot overturn a verdict without due process." Daniel Carter's voice trembled with fury. Due process failed Michael Carter the day lies became law. Olivia Bennet rose sharply, her voice cold. "This is not about truth. This is about chaos." James Holloway stood and shouted, "Chaos began when justice was strangled." Laura Carter whispered softly from the gallery, "Please, God, give us light." Michael Carter lowered his head, his chains rattling softly as hope fought despair inside him. Daniel Carter whispered, "This battle is not finished." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed as Daniel Carter pushed through the crowd. Microphones pressed toward him, voices shouting questions. Daniel Carter's eyes burned as he said, "Michael Carter was condemned by lies, but truth is rising." Olivia Bennet stepped behind him, voice sharp, "He is misleading the public." Daniel Carter turned, his voice cutting like steel. The only ones misled are those who trust your corruption. Cameras flashed, capturing his rage. Laura Carter clutched his arm, whispering, "Daniel, please, they will destroy you in public." Daniel Carter whispered back, "Let them try." Daniel Carter sat across from Michael Carter in the prison visitation room, their hands pressed against the glass. Michael Carter whispered, "Daniel, they will twist your fight into ruin." Daniel Carter's eyes burned with resolve. "Then let them twist. I will not break." Michael Carter's voice cracked, "I cannot let you die for me." Daniel Carter leaned closer, his words sharp, "You are not the reason I fight. Justice is." Michael Carter's tears fell freely as he whispered, "Then promise me you will not stop." Daniel Carter's voice was steady as stone. "Until my last breath, Michael." Late that night, Daniel Carter met James Holloway in a deserted parking garage. James Holloway whispered, "There are recordings, hidden tapes that prove Olivia Bennett knew about Clark Evans' betrayal." Daniel Carter's eyes widened. "Then we have the crack to bring them down." James Holloway's voice trembled. "If they learn I gave this to you, they will end me." Daniel Carter placed a hand on his shoulder, whispering, "They will not end you. They will end themselves." The echo of footsteps haunted the space as both men realized they had stepped deeper into a storm with no return. Back at Laura Carter's home, the family gathered in silence. Laura Carter whispered, "I am afraid this fight will kill us all." Daniel Carter stood at the window, staring at the storm outside. "Truth is worth dying for." Michael Carter's voice echoed in memory, his words faint but alive. "Daniel, you carry too much." Laura Carter placed a trembling hand on his back, whispering, "You are my son, and I cannot lose you too." Daniel Carter's voice cracked as he whispered, "Then pray, Mother, because this storm will not end until justice breathes." Thunder rolled beyond the glass, echoing his vow. The night hung heavy as Daniel Carter sat in his apartment, the sealed letter trembling in his hands. Rain hammered the windows, lightning flashing across his weary face. He whispered, "Michael Carter, I will not stop." Laura Carter entered quietly, her voice fragile. "Daniel, your fight is killing you." Daniel Carter turned, eyes shadowed. "If truth demands my breath, I give it freely." Laura Carter clasped his arm, whispering, "Do not make me bury two sons." His chest tightened, but his voice steadied. "Then stand with me, Mother, until this is over." Silence filled the room, broken only by the storm outside. In a dim chamber beneath the courthouse, James Holloway placed a recorder on the table. His voice trembled. "This contains Olivia Bennett admitting knowledge of Clark Evans' cover-up." Daniel Carter's eyes widened, whispering, "This is the final key." James Holloway's face darkened. "If this leaks, it will destroy careers and possibly lives." Daniel Carter's voice cut like steel. "Then let it destroy what deserves to fall." James Holloway closed his eyes, whispering, "God forgive us." The faint hum of fluorescent lights made the silence unbearable as Daniel Carter's determination grew unbreakable. Daniel Carter burst into the courthouse with the recorder clutched tightly. Judge Richard Hayes raised his gavel. "This intrusion is unacceptable." Daniel Carter's voice thundered, "Not intrusion, truth." Olivia Bennett's face blanched, her eyes narrowing as whispers filled the room. Michael Carter raised his head, shackled hands trembling with hope. Laura Carter clasped her rosary, whispering silently. Clark Evans bowed his head, shame dripping like rain. James Holloway shouted, "Play it!" Daniel Carter pressed the recorder, Olivia Bennett's voice spilling out, damning words echoing across the chamber. Silence followed, as if the world itself had stopped to listen. The recording played, Olivia Bennett's voice clear. "Ice, Clark Evans buried it, and I let it happen." Gasps erupted as Olivia Bennett froze in her seat, rage boiling on her face. Daniel Carter whispered, "Justice breathes tonight." Michael Carter's tears fell freely, his chains rattling as he whispered, "Daniel." Laura Carter sobbed into her hands. Clark Evans stood, voice breaking. "It's true. All of it. Judge Richard Hayes's gavel slammed again. This court cannot ignore this revelation. Olivia Bennet shouted, "You will not end me!" Daniel Carter's voice cut through, calm and final. "Truth already has." As dawn broke, Daniel Carter stood on the courthouse steps. The storm cleared, the sky streaked with crimson. Reporters swarmed, but he stared past them, whispering, "Michael Carter, this fight is not over until you are free." Laura Carter placed her hand on his shoulder, whispering, "You gave him hope." James Holloway joined them, his face weary but alive. "The system will fight back." Daniel Carter's eyes narrowed, voice steady. "Then, I will fight harder." Clark Evans stood at a distance, haunted eyes fixed on the ground. The recorder clicked silent in Daniel Carter's pocket. "I knew you will always spend your wire, boy." His vow echoed in the morning air. "Until my last breath."